You're single, you don't need a whole place. My sister wanted my home for her family. I refused. She called me selfish and ended up drowning in bills. I am the older brother, 29, and my younger sister, who is now 27, has always been the golden kid. Allow me to take you through the entire narrative from the beginning. Here's the thing. My parents had me while they were still sorting out their professions. 3 years later, my sister was born. It was evident from the start who was the favored. My parents were polite to me, but once my sister arrived, everything seemed to revolve around her. People noticed it too. Relatives would comment on how much attention she received, but my parents would simply laugh it off. As children, the preference was clear. My birthdays were tiny, with homemade cake, whereas my sisters had booked locations and large guest lists. When I asked why, my father responded, "You're older now." I was 8, she was 6. Toys were the same. I saved months for a skateboard. She mentioned wanting a bike and got one by the weekend. My mother's explanation was always, "She's younger. Let her enjoy it." School also made it plain. I received high marks and quickly found a nice job. My sister brought home average work or a painting and put it on the fridge. I took second place in a science fair. My father did not attend since he had work. She had a single line in a school play, and both parents left work early to attend. My mom's excuse is that she gets nervous. She requires support. I was a good kid who remained out of trouble, did well in school, and helped at home. But my parents pretended that I didn't require attention. I was fine, although my sister was always the special one or baby. I was continually told, "You're older. You should understand," or "She's younger. Let her have it." As if my sole responsibility was to support her. By middle school, the pattern had mostly been established. My sister was at the heart of everything. I was only there to help out and not complicate matters. At that age, you begin to notice the little things more. And there were plenty. In 7th school, I wanted to participate in a scientific competition and build a little solar-powered car, but there was a cost and supplies required. When I requested at dinner, my father said it was too expensive and my mother said I should forgo it. A week later, my sister registered for a dancing camp that cost twice as much, and they paid without hesitation. I ended up constructing a basic version out of scraps in my garage. I couldn't compete, but my teacher was impressed that I tried. That's when I realized that if I wanted something, I had to do it myself. However, home life was about more than just money. It was how they treated us. If my sister made a mess, I was expected to clean it. If something went missing, it was presumed that I was responsible. She once left an open juice box on the couch, which discolored the fabric. My mother called me from my room and urged me to tidy things up. I said it wasn't me. She commented, "I know, but she's tired. Just do it." That was natural. She also had a propensity of talking back. She would quarrel, roll her eyes and slam the doors. My parents dubbed it attitude. If I did something like that, it was considered disrespectful. And I'd lose privileges. There were occasions when my father would take me aside and say things like, "She's your little sister. You have to keep the peace. Don't provoke her." It didn't matter who started it, it was always up to me to smooth things out. At school, I began to notice how my life differed from that of some of my friends. My friend's parents attended his basketball games, assisted with projects, and inquired about his academic progress. At our house, most talks with me were orders. Take out the trash. Help your sister with her homework. Do not stay out too late. My sister was continually asking questions and giving praise. How was your day? What would you want for dinner? You did exceptionally well. By the age of 16, I had ceased expecting anything from my parents and instead focused on myself. I cut lawns, took odd jobs, saved money, and bought my own belongings. My sister still got everything handed to her and she even quipped, "I'm the favorite." My parents smiled. I kept quiet, knowing that speaking up wouldn't change anything. By the time high school began, I had ceased asking for things. I rarely went on school field excursions, since I knew the answer would be no. The class once traveled to a science facility outside of town, which cost about $30. I did not even bring it up. I used to believe that money was limited, but then I saw my parents take my sister shopping for clothes or electronics. Once, I overheard my mother on the phone with a family acquaintance. She responded, "He's fine. He doesn't need much. She's the one we have to focus on. She's more sensitive." I think that's how they perceived me. Someone who did not need assistance or attention. But I did. I've just learnt not to anticipate it. By sophomore year, I had started looking for ways to make my own money. I'd shovel snow, mow the grass and walk the dogs. It wasn't a lot, but it gave me some control. If I desired a book or a game, I'd buy it for myself. My parents thought it was responsible, and they expressed their pride in my independence. They didn't realize it was because I had no other options. Meanwhile, my sister kept getting what she asked for. If she wanted to join a new club, they would pay. If she wanted to quit something, they'd say that was fine. She too enjoyed showing off. She'd tell me, "Mom and Dad said I'm special." I'd dismiss it, but it stuck. One last thing from that period. There was a career expo at the school. I wanted to go since some tech businesses were coming. It was a Saturday event. I asked my father for a ride. He stated he was busy driving my sister to a friend's party. My mother told me to just ride the bus. I went anyway, but the bus route was sluggish, so I missed the first part. When I went home, my sister was telling me how much fun she had at the party, and my parents were beaming as they listened. I didn't even mention the fare. By the time of high school, I had ceased expecting them to be present for anything important to me. I kept my head down, worked when I could, and intended to leave as soon as possible. By the time I graduated high school, I realized I couldn't rely on my parents for anything. They had covered part of my essential education fees, but anything else I required came out of my own wallet. My sister had just turned 17 and already owned a used automobile that my parents had purchased for her. I asked if I might borrow it for prom, but the answer was no since she might need it. I ended up taking a ride from a friend. It didn't concern me much at the time. I'd learnt that I needed to manage things on my own. I was accepted into a decent state college. Nothing spectacular, but solid. And it was in another city, which was significant for me. I desired space. My parents made a big fuss about how they couldn't afford much help and that I needed to be responsible. I was offered financial aid and a tiny scholarship. They paid for my second semester's books, but I covered the rest, including lodging, food, and transportation, with a combination of part-time employment and savings from mowing lawns and doing odd jobs in high school. My sister received a large good luck supper when she began community college later. When I departed for school, it was only a quick goodbye. The first year was difficult, but I learned a lot. I worked evenings at a coffee shop close to campus. On weekends I took shifts in a bookshop. My grades were consistent, but I was unable to attend as many parties or hang out as some of my classmates. I did not mind. It was fantastic to know that I earned what I had. I had a strict budget. I kept a notebook with every expense, even to the smallest snack. When I wanted a new phone or a better laptop, I planned months in advance. I rapidly discovered that if money is not tracked, it evaporates quickly. Meanwhile, my sister remained the focus of my parents' attention. She transferred programs twice before deciding school wasn't for her. She lived at home without paying rent. They purchased her a modern car because the previous one was unreliable. I found out about it when my mother called to ask for help setting up the Bluetooth. It did not surprise me. During family dinners, she would whine about being bored or wishing to travel. My parents would nod and say, "We'll figure something out." When I stated that I was taking 16 classes and working 30 hours a week, they'd just respond, "You've always been good at managing things." My sophomore year, I got a better job. One of my professors assisted me in obtaining an employment as an assistant at a small technology business in downtown. It paid more than the coffee business, and the owner did not mind my class schedule. I kept the bookstore shifts on weekends. Most days, I left my apartment at 8 a.m. I came back after dark, but my savings grew. I created my first genuine bank account and began contributing to a tiny emergency fund. I recall sitting at my tiny desk, proud of the $600 I had managed to keep unspoiled. It wasn't a lot, but it was mine. The absence of support from my family no longer bothered me. It became normal. I rarely called home, save for birthdays and holidays. My parents would inquire how school was doing, then discuss my sister's current plans. She worked at a shop for a month before quitting because she disliked the hours. My mother told me she just needed to find her passion. I was tempted to mention that I didn't much enjoy working double shifts, but I kept quiet. By junior year I had streamlined everything. I moved into a cheaper apartment with 2 roommates, sold my old bike, and used the money I had saved to buy a second-hand automobile. It was not fancy, but it was dependable. Every dime counts. I found freelancing employment online, simple data input, coaching, or anything that pays. I also began reading about investment. Nothing major, just fundamentals like saving, budgeting, and compound interest. I didn't have much, but I enjoyed the thought of being prepared. My parents organized a lavish celebration for my sister's 19th birthday. She received a new laptop and a week-long trip to the coast with her pals, which they paid for. I wrote her a simple note that read, "Happy birthday." No party for me when I turned 21. I celebrated by working a shift and getting takeout with a friend. It did not hurt. It was simply the way things were. My parents set various standards for us. They always have. I just made sure to stay focused. By the time I was about to graduate, I'd saved enough for a deposit on an apartment and had paid off my tiny student debts. I didn't immediately notify my parents since I didn't want to hear comparisons or comments. When I mentioned it during a phone call, my father responded, "Good. Now maybe you can help your sister when she needs it." That line resonated with me. It was not intended as a joke. They actually saw me as her backup plan. That was when I resolved that whatever I made would be for myself. I would not let their priorities influence mine. Well, after graduation, I remained in the same place where I attended school. The computer company where I worked part-time offered me a full-time position. It wasn't a lot of money, but for a 23-year-old just out of college, it was adequate. I moved into a better apartment with one roommate, kept my car running, and began saving money each month. I had a plan. Continue to work hard, save money, and eventually buy my own place. At home, nothing has changed. My sister, at 21, was still living with my parents. She did not return to school after dropping out of community college. She worked a few short-term jobs, quit when she didn't like the hours, and complained about not receiving enough help. My parents treated her as if she were under siege. Every time I called, the conversation always revolved around her. "Your sister is figuring things out. She's stressed. Be nice to her. She's sensitive." Around this time, the rudeness became more noticeable. When I visited for the holidays, she treated me as if I were a visitor in her home. She'd leave her belongings everywhere, make disparaging remarks about my clothing or automobile. "Wow, you're still driving that old thing. Do you even have time to live your life working all the time?" If I ignored her, she would press. "Why are you so quiet? Are you too good for us right now?" One Thanksgiving, I brought a little basket of food and drinks. Nothing spectacular, just something to give. She rolled her eyes and said, "Thanks, but Mom already covered everything." "You really don't have to show off." My parents didn't say anything to her. My father actually told me, "Don't be offended, she jokes like that." When she started seeing a guy, things got worse. She bragged about how supportive he was and how they were going to do great things. At one dinner, she made a point of mentioning, "He doesn't just work all the time like some people." My mother chuckled. My father said, "She just wants you to loosen up." I kept my distance, but I recognized the trend. They minimized all of my wonderful work. Whatever she accomplished, they exaggerated. Around that time, I received my first promotion. My manager summoned me to his office and offered me a team lead role. I was proud of it. I planned a modest dinner with close friends and sent invitations to my parents and sister. They said they will attempt to arrive. The day arrived. I reserved a good site, nothing fancy, but I wanted to celebrate. Everyone but my family showed up. I called my mother thereafter. She corrected herself. "Oh, sorry. Your sister got a new certification, and we went out with her. It was some online class certificate, nothing career-changing, but they acted like it was a major milestone." My dad interrupted. "You know how she gets." We were unable to reject it. That night, I realized I had stopped expecting them to show up for me. Despite the home drama, work was satisfying. I kept moving higher, saving more, and looked for methods to advance. I learned to avoid unnecessary expenses. I started reading more about money, investments, and property. My weekends were spent relaxing, meeting friends, and checking listings. My long-term goal was straightforward. I want to own my own apartment before I turn 31. My parents' calls remained the same. If they contacted me, it was typically about my sister. "Could you help her with her resume? She needs help with a loan. She's thinking of launching a business. Perhaps you can guide her." If I stated I was busy, they would become cold. My mother once told me, "Don't forget where you came from." I didn't dispute. I just continued doing my own thing. During one visit home, I eventually confronted them. My sister had been moaning about her employment, claiming she deserved more money. My mother turned to me and said, "Maybe you can talk to your boss about hiring her." I responded, "She doesn't have the experience. I worked for this." My father scowled and said, "Don't be selfish. Family helps family." My sister smirked. "You act like you're some big deal. It's just a job." That night, I drove back to my apartment and made a choice. I would never let them decide what I owed. I was not harsh about it. I simply stopped disclosing details. I didn't tell them how much I earned, where I invested, or what I had planned. When they inquired, I kept things short. It wasn't fury, but rather strategy. By the age of 26, my financial situation had improved beyond my expectations. I had a healthy bank account, a dependable automobile, and no debt. My sister was still living at home. She had a newer automobile, which my parents helped her buy, and they paid for some of her costs. She'd make online comments about her independence, but I knew the truth. She eventually totaled the automobile. When my parents reminded me that I should keep an eye out for her, I simply nodded. I was not going to argue. I had bigger plans and did not need their approval. Every snide remark and overlooked moment only made it clearer. They were not going to change, and neither was I. By the time I was 27, I had established a good routine. Work was consistent, and my savings finally looked like something. I kept my spending modest and said no to many things. My buddies called me stingy, but I knew what I was doing. I wanted to own something before turning 31. I began to look seriously at places. I spent my weekends researching listings, meeting agents, and crunching numbers. I wasn't looking for anything extravagant, just a tidy, stable apartment in a good location. After months of searching, I discovered it. 3 bedrooms, plenty of light, and near to work. The price was reasonable, and I could afford the down payment. Signing those papers felt like crossing the finish line. I did not inform my family right away. I waited until I held the keys in my hand. Then I sent a group text featuring a snapshot of myself in front of the building. Finally, I have my own place. It took a bit, but here we are. The responses were predictable. My mother answered, "Congrats. When are you having us over?" My father wrote, "Good job. Your sister will want to see it too." My sister responded, "Finally. It took you long enough." I invited them to a weekend lunch. I prepared, kept things basic, and gave them a tour. My mom instantly commented on how light and open it was, and how ideal it would be for a young family. My father inquired about the 3rd bedroom, guest room and office. My sister interrupted before I could respond. "It's obviously wasted space. Imagine a crib in there." I cracked a joke. "Good thing I bought it for me. Not for you to play dollhouse." She rolled her eyes. "You don't even have anyone. It's just you. Kind of selfish to keep a whole place like this to yourself." My father gave me a look as if I should ignore it. I did not. "Yeah. I worked 3 jobs and skipped vacations so I could selfishly buy something with my own money. Shocking, right?" My mother shifted the subject, but I recognized the tone. They were impressed, but it seemed like they couldn't give me full credit. They inquired about furniture costs. And then my father added, "Well, at least it's in a good spot. Easy to sell when you upgrade. Maybe your sister can use it if she needs something short term." I laughed again. "Yes, if she has market rent and a signed lease." They didn't like that. My mother responded, "You're so sarcastic. We're just saying families help each other." Exactly. I helped myself because no one else was offering. They fell silent after that. Lunch was fine, but the comments continued. My sister would send texts like, "When I get my own place, it's going to be bigger." Or, "Nice apartment. Could use more color though." I would just give a thumbs up or say, "Great. Let me know when that happens." Months later, during another family dinner, things flared up again. My sister was discussing how pricey everything were. She complained about rent and gas, saying, "It must be nice to have a free place." I replied, "It is not free. Banks enjoy receiving monthly payments." My father interjected, "She just means you don't have to worry about moving. It's easier for you." "Yeah," I replied. My sister glared. "It's easier when you plan ahead and don't quit every job you get." "You think you're better because you bought a box with windows?" I asked. "Better than complaining about a box I don't own." My mother urged us to stop. "You two are always at each other's throats. Your sister is just stressed." "She's always stressed," I explained. "Maybe that's why you keep paying for her stuff." My father exclaimed sharply, "Enough. We help her because she needs it." "Right," I said. "And I managed because no one helped me." "Got it." The room fell silent. My sister said something about my being selfish. I just stated that if being selfish implies not relying on your parents at the age of 25, you are guilty. Despite the anxiety, I did not ask them for anything. I did not bring up my finances. I stayed focused on my job. Everything was going nicely. Meanwhile, my sister remained adrift. She worked a series of temporary jobs and blogged online about how difficult the economy was. Every time I went home, my parents talked about her plans and lofty dreams, and they rarely asked about mine. I didn't care anymore. I was confident in my ability. However, the clues did not cease. My mother would suggest, "When you settle down, maybe your sister could stay at your place for a while." My father quipped, "Hope you got a spare key." My sister giggled. "Yeah, you should keep it clean for when I need it." I gave the same response each time. Not happening. I worked for it. One night, my father called unexpectedly. My sister needed somewhere to stay after a split. He asked if she may stay at my place for a few weeks. I said, no, she's your sister. He said, she's also an adult. I responded, she's got 2 parents and a bus pass. She'll be fine. He didn't like that. You've changed. No, I replied. I just stopped being the backup plan. I could feel the sting, but I didn't feel guilty. I was clear from the beginning. What I built was mine. They had several years to treat me like family. They chose to treat me as if I were a support staff member. Now I was only returning the same energy. Months later, I had everything running just as I intended. Work was steady. I had savings. My space was properly decorated and felt like mine. My sister, meantime, remained at home. She had 3 jobs and a brief relationship that ended horribly. My parents continued to treat her as if she were frail, whereas I was the responsible one. Then came the family barbecue. It was late July. Everyone was present. Parents, aunts, uncles and cousins. I arrived with some drinks and sides. My sister arrived last, arms around her lover. The entire family surrounded her as if she were the guest of honor. 2/3 of the way through, she stood up with a wide smile. I have news, she announced, raising her glass. We're having a baby. Everyone shouted, hugged her, and congratulated her lover. I approached her and said, congratulations. I hope you're ready for no sleep. She smirked. Well, I'll have a lot of help, right? I didn't give it much thought. Then the night went on. Then my aunt inquired, so, are you still planning a wedding? My sister replied, yes, but the timeline is complicated now. She turned to me and smiled overly warmly. Actually, this is the perfect time to bring this up. I've been thinking about your apartment. It would be the perfect place for us, close to everything. Plenty of space for the baby. I was nearly laughing, thinking it was a prank. Good thing I bought it for myself, not for a lease. She scowled. I am serious. We can't stay with mom and dad forever. I need a safe haven, and you have that second room you don't even use. You're correct, I answered. It's for my office and my stuff. It's crazy how people use rooms in their own homes. She rolled her eyes. Come on. You don't even have a family. It's just you. This would really help me out. I worked 3 jobs for years to get it. Maybe you could try that method. My mom got involved. She's asking because she needs it. You're single. You can wait a little while to get another one. She was staring at me. Wait, you want me to hand over the place I bought because she's pregnant? My dad responded, she's starting a family. That's more important right now. You'll understand when you have kids. I shake my head. So all those years I was on my own, working, paying rent, saving. None of that counted. But she gets pregnant and suddenly my work belongs to her. My sister's arms are crossed. Don't make it a big deal. You can rent somewhere else for a year or 3. We'll take good care of your place. I laughed. Yeah, because you're famous for taking good care of things like that job you quit after 4 weeks or the car you totaled. Wow, she remarked with a loud voice. So, you're going to hold that over me forever? I thought family helped each other. They do, I informed you. When it's a 3-way street, not when it's a 1-way handout. My mother's expression stiffened. You always have to bring up the past. She's asking for help during a hard time. Hard time? Was all I responded. They made a decision. I did not sign anything. I am not their safety net. My father's voice increased. Don't talk like that. She's your sister. Show some respect. I got up. Respect works both ways. Respect my work, money, and home. The table fell silent. My sister started crying. You're so selfish. You've always been like this. It's just one thing, and you can't do it for me. One thing? You've had everything since you were a kid. The parties, the car, the attention. I got lectures. Now you want my place? She grew furious. Fine, keep your stupid apartment. Don't expect us at your next big moment. We won't bother. Trust me, I told you. I stopped expecting you years ago. My mother murmured something about my being cold. My father shook his head as if I were a disappointment. I scooped up my belongings. I came here to eat a burger, not to be shamed for owning something. I'll see you around. On my way out, my sister called after me. You're going to regret this when you're alone. I turned and answered, better alone than broke and bitter. That was the last time I attempted to be polite about it. The texts began arriving the next day. My father wrote, she cried all night. I hope you're happy. My mother said, we raised you better than this. My sister sent a wall of texts about how I wrecked her pregnant pleasure. I did not respond. 3 days later, my sister called to say, "Fine. I don't want it anymore, but you could at least give us money to get a place." I chuckled. "You want me to pay you because I said no to giving you my home? That's creative." She left a message. Following that, the family group chat became sour. My parents acted distant. They implied that I had become haughty. I didn't care. I had a job, savings, and my own space. I had worked for it. I was not going to give it up because someone else couldn't handle theirs. Following the gathering, I decided to draw a hard line. I didn't react to any additional guilt texts. My sister remained angry. My parents were cold. At first I believed everything would calm down. Instead, they doubled down. They started telling family about how selfish I was. A cousin messaged me, "What's going on? Your mom said you wouldn't let your sister stay with you." I once said, "I bought my own home after years of working. They think it's theirs," which is not the case. Most of my cousins agreed with me. Some people commented, "Yeah, your parents have always babied her." That was lovely to hear. But I didn't need it. Work was my secure place. I put in more hours, took on tasks, and was noticed. A few months later, my manager contacted me about another promotion. It came with a raise and increased flexibility. I decided to celebrate, but this time, I did not invite my parents or sister. I hosted a little celebration with friends and a few supportive relatives. Everyone else sent their congratulations. My parents did not even text. My sister made a comment online about families forgetting who important, which I ignored. Then things changed. My parents began hinting at financial issues. I learned from my cousin that they were covering several of my sister's expenditures. She left another job throughout her pregnancy because it was too stressful. They were paying a portion of her rent, auto insurance, and hospital bills. My father even tapped into his retirement savings. I kept out of it. Every time I received a cryptic text like, "Your sister's having a hard time," I answered, "Hope she figures it." Out a month before the baby was due, my mother called me for the first time in weeks. She inquired, "Could you just loan your sister a little? Just until things settle?" I responded, "You mean give her money so she doesn't have to manage her own life for 3 months?" She responded, "You've changed. You used to care." I responded, "I learned who cared about me. It wasn't you." She left a message. The baby arrived. Everyone acted as if it were a royal occasion. I sent a tiny gift with a brief message. "Congrats. Hope the baby's healthy." My sister said, "Wow, that's it." I left it on read. As the months passed, it became evident that things were not going smoothly for them. The boyfriend had inconsistent work. The bills piled up. They moved in with my parents. When money became tight, the wedding preparations fell through. I learned this from my aunt, who told me, "Your parents are stressed. Your father is covering everything." I just said they made their decisions. I was not gloating. It was only a fact. Then came the moment that decided it for me. My father called again, his tone milder. He remarked, "We may have been too harsh on you. We didn't realize how much you did on your own." He asked if I could contribute a modest amount each month until they were back on their feet. I nearly laughed. "So after years of hearing, 'You're fine. You can handle it,' I'm now meant to carry you?" "No, thanks." He stated it was family. I replied, "Exactly. Family supports, not drains. I learned that from you." That concluded the call. The real satisfaction arrived later. My company hosted a large end-of-year function. They recognized certain staff for significant contributions. I was one of them. My photo was displayed on a screen, and my name was mentioned in front of the entire company and some local media. They awarded me a substantial bonus. I shared one photo online of myself beaming with the trophy. I did not tag anyone. The comments poured in. Friends, co-workers, former classmates. My sister didn't say anything. My mother liked the post but never commented. My dad remained silent. When I saw them at a Christmas dinner months later, the vibe was different. They were nice and quieter than normal. My sister rarely spoke to me. My father inquired about work in a neutral tone. My mother talked largely about the baby. Nobody mentioned the apartment. Nobody asked for money. It was as if they already knew the answer. My sister whispered, "You must feel pretty proud." I responded, "Not proud. Just glad I stopped waiting for anyone's approval." My father shook his head slightly but did not disagree. My mother hugged me swiftly and murmured, "Drive safe." That was it. Looking back, I don't believe I ever received the apology I deserved. But I have something better. Distance, control, and proof that I can construct anything without them. The child who was instructed to understand while his sister had all the attention grew into a guy who did not require their attention at all. They are still the same folks. She is still entitled. They are still enabling. But none of this matters anymore. I've got my place, my job, and my peace. When I lock my door at night, I recall that every piece of furniture, every payment paid, and every inch of that apartment were the result of my own efforts.